Ladies and gentlemen, fresh off a monumental career-defining victory at the NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee, someone who I believe is he's a hero and a legend in the making. I truly believe it. He's got the gift of gab. He is somebody that the NHRA needs to wrap their arms around because he is a superstar for the sport of drag racing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for J.R. Gray. Woo! We need a better, we need more sound effects. JR will work on that in the future. What's up, my man?
I'm doing good, man. Just hanging out with y'all. Great. Thank you for the great introduction there.
I mean it. I'm going to be honest with you, JR. I mean it because my first encounter with you was I believe, at Donald Long's race a few years ago. It's been a hot minute now, and you were going to grudge race another one of our guests later in the show, Lil Country, Justin Swanstrom. You guys both had your small tire cars there. You had the Headhunter, I believe, 4th generation Camaro. Headshot, that's what it was. Headshot, cool car, late model Camaro with a big, massive nitrous motor in it. Had Stevie Jackson helping you, and you guys came to me and wanted a grudge race for the cover of the magazine, and I thought it was an awesome idea. I got to hang out with you and your wife. Congratulations on the little one, the new addition to the family. But ever since that first introduction, JR, dude, you got it. You got the gift of gab. You're not afraid to call your shot, and you can back it up on the racetrack. And I'm happy to see you guys get this deal done selfishly because we need you winning. We need J.R. Gray in front of a camera as often as possible, man. Take us through that moment in Bristol, would you?
Well, we came up. It really starts back in Dallas, but let's just say we came up. We qualified last. We had some problems that came with us to the track that we thought we had fixed, and we qualified last. We were going up against the number one qualifier again, but so we lined up, but we knew we could do it this time. So Mike Jr., we just sat down and we lined up against Ricky again, and we blazed down through there. I think he kicked the rods out somewhere around the 8th mile, trying to keep up with us, and we blazed down through there and put him on the trailer again.
How much feedback did you get from like all your small tire racing friends and family? I mean, you got a hell of a following in like the 28-10-5 no time world. You were a big heavy hitter on the Carolina no time tour. Shout out to Lance and Travis and everybody involved in that deal. Did you sense that? Because I saw a ton of it. People were so excited to see like one of their own make it on the big stage.
Yeah, everybody's excited. I mean, in reality, the whole grudge world in NHRA supports me, as a whole, even though I have, let's say I got 20% of them as fans when we're actually grudge racing, 100% of them support me in the NHRA. So they really come on board and all thank me and congratulate me and really have supported me, buying T-shirts and giving me comments, uplifting comments and everything else. It's quite amazing when you actually see the outlaw world, come together and support me.
I think it's been spectacular to see. I'm curious, what were like if you had to compare and contrast the two environments? I think anybody knows it's obviously dramatically different behind the wheel of your small tire Jason X Mustang with a massive small block in it with 10,000 people down on the starting line. Can you compare and contrast kind of just what the experience has been like for you, JR, going from those outlaw racing routes to the grand stage that is the Camping World NHRA Drag Racing Series?
Well, the outlaw routes I grew into being in South Carolina and, all the tracks that we have. So I kind of grew my drag racing career from that. My original birthplace would have been in Florida NHRA tracks. So at a very young age, I was there. Winning in an outlaw event is it's different. Honestly, I can't remember ever having any emotions in winning an outlaw event. And, like when I won Bristol the other day, like just when I started naming off the people supporting me and, thinking about my dad and, friends that I've lost over the years and just everybody that came, to, your career, it's like a chain, certain people is a link in the chain, not everybody's a link in the chain that had you, but you got a link from the beginning that links you all the way. And certain people were a link that got you to where you're going. So it was just, just thinking all that came over me, and it was just so amazing, and emotional, and it was hard to even accept. I actually spent the next day, Monday, I took the Wally everywhere I went. Like if I was at the Waffle House, it was at the table at the Waffle House. When it was at the steakhouse, it was on the table at the steakhouse. If I went to any of my guys and talked to them in the field, I gave them all the trophies so they could all take a picture with it. So every I just took the Wally with me everywhere I went and tried to enjoy it as long as I could. Matter of fact, it's still with me now, right behind me now.
I don't blame you one bit, man. Few people really understand, how much goes in, how much sacrifice, how much time away from family, how much time away from the business goes in to having these moments, right? I mean, it's hard to put into words, but if you had to, I mean, what was the conversation like with your dad, with your family, with your wife, like the people that have been there watching you, traveling all over creation? I mean, in the grudge world, maybe driving all night to get to a track only to not race because the other guy backed out or whatever. What was that conversation like, JR? What did you have to say to those folks that have been part of that chain for you, a link in the chain?
Well, honestly, like a lot of them, like my dad's deceased, so he wasn't here. My grandpa was deceased; he's not here. Another guy that was a link in the chain in my beginning days of drag racing in South Carolina was a guy named Dell Harwell, which he died at a little short track that we all grudge race and shootout. Did no time
So,
shootout.
so they're watching just
They're
from a different
watching.
location.
So like Dale, I went. I hadn't made it to my dad's grave because they're all in Florida, but on Monday I went. Straight to Dale's grave with the trophy, and
Oh,
spent a little bit of time, and I could just feel his presence, as I talked to him. Like, I haven't felt anything like that in a long while. And I could just feel like it was like a breeze and a chill all the way through my bone as I talked to him and everything, and I just would imagine what he would tell me, it's been a journey, and if you think about it, it all progresses. I mean, 12 months ago when I won Radio versus the World, which, I figured that was the pinnacle of my career type deal. Like I would have never dreamed of even. I mean, now I can't afford to go NHRA Pro Mod racing. That's Stevie and they're professional. Like here I'm over here, and so when you really think about it, 12 months later, and it was 12 months later, I'm winning my first Wally, and
I
you know,
got to be honest, JR, that's not something that happens. I know plenty of people that raced Pro Mod for years and years and years and never did get it done,
right.
right? So to do it, to your point, inside of 12 months, what's that say about Mike Janis and Mike Janis Jr.? I'd love to hear your take on that because I want to delve in a little bit more, if you're willing, to the nuances between. One of the greatest conversations I ever had was like 12 years ago with Stevie, or 10 years ago, and he told me about the difference between racing with your money on the line and then racing for money that like you didn't win. It's just a way different situation. And we always would kind of like maybe build the story that, NHRA, that there's a little bit lost because it's not your money on the line. It's the NHRA's money that's on the line. But
Mhm.
hearing you talk about this like you have, and that emotional release and that moment of like feeling you finally did it, I don't know that we talk about that enough. I'm curious though, what do you make of what Mike Janis and Mike Janis Jr. have been able to put together? It broke all of our hearts to see Mike get out of the car. Obviously, health reasons forced him to do that, but man, clearly a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I really think that we are, the perfect team together. These guys, they race a little different than what I have learned in my heads up racing, how we race with Stevie and stuff. It's a little bit different of, how we run and do things, but they are truly a championship team. They have lifted me up when I've been down and I have been there for them. And, we mesh together so good. You can't have, 10 loudmouth people together. You can only have one. So we got one. I really think I entertain them a lot of times with my crazy stories and things that go on around me, And so it really meshes us real good together, and we have a good time at the track, and like I said, they truly are a championship organization. I was fortunate to get with them. I mean, even for that door, life's all about timing, and for the door to open up. I mean, within 3 days, all this stuff transpired, that was going on, and the door opened up to Mike Janis, and then I reached out to them. It was just, I mean, it's still just unbelievable to me, because it truly was meant to be. Because if it wouldn't be.
there's no argument to be made, honestly, JR. I was surprised, to be honest, because you got some New York guys, right? I mean, you got some, East Coast New York guys, and then see them getting mixed up with JR Gray. I'm going, man, I don't know. This is going to be interesting, but watching from afar, it's clearly been a very harmonious relationship. I was curious if you'd be willing. Could you maybe share with us some of those differences and how you've raced historically and how Mike Janis and Mike Janis Jr. approach things? I think everybody is dying to know.
Okay, and well, some of this, like my racing was always one and done. I mean, 80% of my career, maybe even 90% of my career is one and done. We're racing for some unknown amount of money, more than, small money and big money, all different kinds of money, unquestionable. And, like Stevie, he'd always be like, if it was Stevie, how hard do you want to run it? I'd be like, this is the last pass it ever needs to make. Because, it's not only like at the level that we got to in grudge racing, yet again, even though we're running for big money, it's still about the passion. It's still about the ego. It's still about, the characters and the teams that you're trying to crush. They're true rivalries where we beat some of these things. We beat back and forth for 3 to 6 months before we can agree on a place to race. So you truly want to step in the ring and crush them. So I've raced most of my career being one and done. Like, we practice, but we know where the edge is. And, we always do. And
I guess that's where headshot come from. Like, I just thought about, like, you can't wound somebody, right? I mean, you got to put them out.
You got to put them out. That's why we put headshot on it, because we're going to shoot one one time in the head, and that's it. And so that's how we ran for years. And then when I stepped over to NHRA, it's a little bit more of a, you have to make 4 rounds. I mean, you got to think even my radio versus the world career was short. I mean, you're talking about really maybe 3 or 4 races.
Yes, sir.
Because it all came about, and then we decided to park it, kind of, whatever. We won the radio versus world, which is the biggest race to win, and then we runnered up in the snowbirds, which
had the nitrous world record for a long time, or still do.
I think we still have it.
I think you still have it.
Yeah, and nobody's beat it. And so we come from that background of just one and done. And even when I had 2 motors set up. We were prepared in between. When I'm at a show like that, they're gonna, as long as I can put a motor in within a reasonable amount of time, they're waiting because everybody there wants to see this race. So it's a different deal than being in NHRA where, even though really you're just a small fish in a big pond, there's TV time. Nothing can get in the way with TV time. And that's just the truth. It's business. And so from over there, I'd blow a nitrous motor up in round 2. And we rebuilt it or put the new one in, whichever we could do, whichever was quicker. And we'd go back up for round 3 or round 4, whatever it would be, and then run it that hard again. And in pro mod, it's a little different. You can hurt yourself and not make it back in 30 minutes. And I mean, honestly, when them rounds start going, it feels like 15 minutes. I mean, honestly. So the most capable teams ain't going to make it back up there and slam the motor in. So, I would say, and I wouldn't use the word conservative, but it's just a different approach. You have to make 4 rounds.
Right. I mean, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, and it's fun to hear you talk about it because I do think sometimes people lose sight of that. And that's something that you see in like the Street Outlaws, no prep. That's such a different style of racing because one run. I mean, a lot of time there's no testing, no shakedowns. We're going to unload this thing and race somebody for money. Very, very interesting, in my opinion, to go from that environment. Do you like getting to make more runs? I mean, I know that sounds kind of like casual, but do you enjoy getting to make 3-4 qualifying runs, and if you win a race, make 4 rounds on race day?
Yeah, I really enjoy it, because there's a whole nother agenda. You're trying to, qualify good, or position yourself in quality. There's so many little, I'm still learning different chess moves and things that you might do. And a lot of times they tell me, no, that won't work. And, but I'm always thinking, but, it's very, every day you're trying to be better, and you're at tracks that you don't get to test at. And even if you tried to rent the track ahead of time, you're not even remotely close to what prep you're getting on the day that you're there. there.
It's amazing.
So you really showing up to a track, and then you're having to tune to the track within 3 runs to try to get your best qualifying effort. At the same point in drive, you have to drive the car flawlessly. I mean, there's not no time for errors. You're really not even guaranteed one qualifier. And sometimes like every, when we like ducks races, if a qualifier, if any car got out of shape, you just let off and coasted down track. I mean, you got 20 qualifiers.
Literally.
You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, and I still have a problem with this, is in qualifying, you have a problem, you dump the throttle. And that's kind of the same way from grudge racing. Same thing. Problem in qualifying, no need to cowboy the car. There's nothing to win by it. Now in Pro Mod, it's a little bit different of approach because if there truly is 18 to 20 cars there, every tenth of a second matters. And if you're doing a qualifier day, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You truly don't know. You're supposed to get 2 qualifiers tomorrow, but I've been in a situation where you didn't get them.
Oh,
And,
for sure.
So in reality, you, even as a driver, you have to try to, every tenth of a second you can save and get down to that finish line. You need to get down there because you don't know what's going to be tomorrow, what's going to be on the next qualifier. So there's, and I'm still trying to learn that part because my head's so embedded to just once it goes away to let off. And there's a happy medium. You don't need to crash the car and qualify neither.
Right.
You need to stay after it if it's salvageable and pick up that other half a second or second or whatever you could instead of rolling down to a stop.
It's
Um,
a it's definitely a different it's a totally different environment, that pressure cooker environment that exists when they start running around and they're turning the cars quickly, like you said, 30 minutes, sometimes it feels like less than that. When they get that show rocking and rolling at an NHRA national event, it is not for the faint of heart. Will you just kind of briefly talk about what do you make of racing Ricky Smith? I mean, you had a bye in the second round, but you had to race some hitters there in the semifinals and finals. Obviously, you can't sleep on Mike Salinas and Jose Gonzalez, our reigning champion. Two absolute badasses, but Ricky Smith's a legend. Was that a special moment for you just to be lining up against this guy at Thunder Valley, one of the most kind of treasured drag strips on the planet Earth?
it really was. I mean, Ricky Smith's name on top of the stands over there is a legend, or I think it was a legend.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
And and when you're lining up against them, and I say this about anybody, this would be Stevie. I mean, even me. If like Ricky Smith, like I beat him in Dallas, I'm like, okay, Ricky's a good competitor. He went number one twice. The odds of me beating him again significantly decrease when I already beat him once. Beating a heavyweight competitor 2 or 3 times in a row is not. No, I've been in that. I mean, grudge racing. I've been in that situation. It's not that easy. Like your odds go down, your luck go. Everything that was working against you to win each time you beat a Stevie or a Ricky, especially 2 times, 3 times. 2 times.
Do you pay attention to that, like the odds of these things? And when you run a guy 2, 3, 4 times in a row, you know that the scale's being kind of slid in the wrong direction.
Yeah, the statistics are bad. The things that are positive is it's putting more pressure on them too, because at the same point in time, if they really are a competitor and passionate, they want to beat you. Like, I mean, we look at everything. We know who beats who on each tree, and even that, you're trying to be perfect. You don't want somebody beating you on a tree 3 times in a row or 2 times in a row. You're going to be chomping at that tree, and then yet again, now you're putting something in your head you don't need because here you're going to go up there and you possibly red light because you just don't even want this person beating you on the tree. And so and Ricky Smith, he's a great competitor. He really is. And, I've known him for a short time. I've known of him, but I've only, personally, met him this year. Um, and, you know, I know everybody was cheering that I would beat him. I mean, he has, everybody wants to see Ricky get a put on the trailer.
It's
Um,
crazy, man. I argue that I think Ricky's, if he's not the greatest of all time, if he's not the GOAT, he's damn near. He's definitely in the conversation, especially when it comes to door slammer drag racing. One of the best to ever do it without question. But it is kind of interesting, because
well,
he's a guy people love to see lose.
Ricky has the my grudge racing and class racing, and really even I probably told you this before, is I try to keep everybody mad at me. I mean, at the end of the day, we can be friends and go out to dinner. That's fine. But I'm going to say stuff smart to you and stuff like that, especially when I've been kind of quiet lately, but because I kind of got beat into submission for a little while. But you give me a couple more rounds wins, and then I'm coming back. But my tactic in grudge racing was always to keep everybody equal, everybody mad at me, because in that way I had everybody. I'm trying to lock people in for races or upset them or make them really want to beat me. And the harder they try, the more likely they're going to mess up.
I agree wholeheartedly. Closing question, JR, and I really appreciate your time today. Will we see you in Vegas? We round out the season at the NHRA Nationals in Vegas?
Yeah, we're definitely going to Vegas. We're coming down there. We're going to try to win again, and we're going to try to go number one qualifier. I mean, that's our plan, and that's what we're going to do.
You've got a hot rod. You've got people talking. You've got their attention, JR. It's an incredible thing to see. And I guess we'll see you again fielding a hot rod with the Janises in 2022.
Yep, I'm signed up again, and we'll be driving that. And we got, like I said, we got 3 cars. We got
Yeah, you got them stacked like firewood right now.
Yep, we got an 8th mile. We got a screw blower one going together right now. We got for the 8th mile, so we're gonna start running out at a few little races when we're not racing NHRA. We got my car that I have right now that we're running in NHRA, and then we have another one being built right now.
Well, hey, man, sounds like you guys are going to have a busy offseason. We're certainly excited about it to see you back to contend for a championship in 2022. JR, congratulations, man. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you in Las Vegas.
All right, thanks a lot.